Hey y'all, welcome to Life Will Be. I'm your host, Lydia T. Blanco. As always, I am extremely grateful that you decided to spend time with me. Believe it or not, it's the end of 2025. I mean, what is there not to believe? But the fact that we made it is something to celebrate. And the fact that you've been on this journey with me is something that I do not take lightly. Your listenership, your engagement, emails, the messages on social platforms, and just being here means so much. It has been incredible returning back to the podcast as life will be. Okay, because life will truly be. You know what will also be? Time. Time will pass. Will you? I remember that being on the wall in my high school classroom above the clock. And I took it literally and figuratively. I was like, okay, well, I'm going to pass this class, but also in life, am I going to pass? So many people did not. And when I say that, what I mean is so many people did not make it. Life has gotten the best of some people. And that is why when I say life will be, I mean it sincerely. And I want to continue to experience life moment by moment through God's goodness, but also happen to life. So that's my moment of gratitude. What I really want to talk about today is the new now, famously known as the new year, but I'm coining it as the new now, right? Also, the ingredient of time. I was reading the word as I do daily, and as a part of the devotion, one of the things that was written that caught my attention was this idea of the ingredient of time. I always want to be on my mark, but I also know what it is like to be ahead of your time and how, in some ways, that can be rewarding, but at the same time, it can also feel like a little slight because of the lack of recognition or support, community around the thing that you are doing because, you know, you're somewhere else and people haven't caught up to that place yet. Now, when I think about the ingredient of time, I'm like, oh, this is what creates fruitfulness. This is what allows us to be one with the Most High and in alignment. As I think about this new now, I think about co creating with this awareness and this acceptance of what is and great expectation of what is to come. You know, the Bible tells us in Ecclesiastes 3:1 that there is a season for everything. In this winter season, I'm challenging myself to slow down. I'm also creating and doing and being. And those things require time and attention. They also require intentionality. And so I'm reminding myself to not rush as the sun sets a little earlier, to be okay with the sun setting and not to allow that to impact me emotionally, psychologically, any of the ways that it could, right? Because seasonal feelings and the emotions that come up when the seasons change are it's very real. And so I'm slowing down and I'm accepting things for what they are. And in accepting things for what they are, I'm realizing that allows me to co create the moments and the experiences that I want to have. I've also been challenging myself to be a bit more patient and not rush timelines. I believe that when you rush timelines, you can jump to a timeline that was not meant for you, or even if you arrive there prematurely, you'll just mess it up, even if it was for you, right? That whole idea of time travel, I feel like is real in that way. And when I think about just wanting to be on time, but being in alignment with the Most High, those are some of the things that come to mind. Now, you're probably like, Lydia, okay, don't try to breeze over this new now. A lot of people are like, Happy New Year already. And I'm like, okay, the calendar hasn't quite strike one, okay, or struck one, but I get it because I feel it. And I feel like this now that I'm creating is what is going to carry me as the calendar changes. So I'm telling myself, I'm telling my sister, my mama, and them, and I'm like, Happy New Now, Happy New Now. Because the intention, the daily actions, the routines, the habits, the mindset. My sister is really big on neuroscience right now. Did she study neuroscience? Not formally, but she is doing her research, and in her enthusiasm and excitement for what she's learning, she's sharing with me. And because our phones are always listening, of course, this man pops up on TikTok. I wish I knew his name, but I saved the video. And he was talking about faith in neuroscience and how faith is the substance of things unseen that we hope for, right? But science considers that to be like neuroscience, and our brain forms our realities, right? What we think about, what we believe the most. And I was like, yo, that's good. That is faith, right? If you're hoping for the worst, that is the outcome that you will receive. If you're hoping for the best, that is what you will create. And so when I think about being intentional and speaking life over myself and creating these habits and routines and really acting in and on what I believe, I'm like, oh, that's the new now, right? Changing my mind today and sticking with that and being very disciplined and serious about my life looking different because of what I think, what I believe, what I say, what I do, and how I show up and engage with others. That also requires right sizing my expectations, thinking about radical acceptance. I also believe that challenges me to right size my perceptions, my expectations, and accepting things for what they are. That is hard. That's hard. They call it radical acceptance, and I'm like, yeah, I get it. And in some ways, it is radical, but I also believe, as someone who believes in Most High, it is what we are called to do. There are so many stories and examples in the Bible where, okay, number one, people be reading all this stuff, and I'm like, if you would just read the word, okay. But that expectation part, right? Just believing bigger in moments and seasons and at times when we need to, right? Because there's a season for everything, but also knowing when to pull back and retreat is also equally as important. When I think about all those things and I think about time being an ingredient, I think about fruitfulness. I want my life to be fruitful. I want to bear good fruit. I want to be a good tree. And I want there to be enough for everyone. And I'm brought back to these moments in childhood where I would walk up the hill, a number of homes, and I would pick this man's plum tree. God bless this man's heart. I do not remember his name, but he was the Black man that lived at the top of his street in the largest house on that block. He had a plum tree, and he would come out on the weekends, some early mornings, and he would tend to his tree. While we thought he wasn't looking, my friends and I, or sometimes solo, I would just go and pick his plums because I knew when they were small and green and tart and hard and crunchy the way I liked them, that they would be so satisfying to me. And I couldn't understand why he would get so upset. I'm like, this is public property. The whole time it wasn't, right? As a child, I enjoyed picking his fruit. I didn't realize that it was premature until it was brought to my attention. And I realized why he would be so upset now, because we were picking his fruit from his tree that he'd been tending to seasonally and wanted his harvest, was taking his harvest and wasn't working for it. And as I say, I want to be a good tree. I have to be mindful of the relationships I'm in, the people I'm around, so that no one is doing that to my fruit, right? Or I'm not doing that to other people's trees, right? Their being. And when I think about my maturation process as a woman, as a believer, being mindful of the season in which it is time to plant, to tend to till, to harvest, my tree and my being. I want my life to produce good fruit. I want the people who I'm planted around to produce good fruit, and I want to be good soil for the Most High and for others and myself, right? I just don't want fruit for myself. That requires time. Time is an ingredient, not a cursor. It is not something that we should go against. There's truly a time and a season for everything. I just want to be in alignment and I want to do great things, and it requires time. I know there's that old saying, great things require time or take time. And I believe that, there is so much that we could be doing with the time that we have now. Most times we're not doing it. We're thinking about it. We're not doing it. One of my words this year was action. Another word was necessary. And there have been things that I've been working on for so long. And I'm like, okay, Lydia, it is time to take action. But let's only do what is actually necessary. Right. And so those things have grounded me. And just being mindful of the time that it takes to be great and not rushing timelines. Okay. So in time, your discernment grows, your humility, endurance, obedience, peace, okay, character. Hello, character. So many of these things take form, right? But when we rush the process, we can easily forfeit the full maturation of those things, right? Thinking about those little plums that I used to pick, they tasted good, but there was no nourishment to them because I picked them prematurely. Right. And so the other big thing that's been coming up for me is just trusting God's time. I just want clarity and peace and this and that and the fourth. I don't know what you want. Right. But it is so key to trust God's timing and remain prayerful as well. I also believe that one of the ways that we trust God in his timing is by doing what is necessary with the time that we do have. I hate when people miss deadlines. I hate it. I've always hated it. Even prior to my calling as a journalist, I'm just like, no, do not be late. Honestly admit that there was a season in my life, I think it was like my late 20s. I was just like a little late to things. And it was brought to my attention. I was like, okay, let me get back on top of my game. But being late, missing deadlines, and not doing what you said you were going to do, especially when you have the time, I think it's a shun. It's very arrogant to think that you have more time than you actually do. And so when I think about trusting the Most High, I also think about being a good steward of the time that you have to do the things that you've been called to do things that you said you were going to do, especially when other people are involved. Nobody's bigger than the program. And if you are the reason why the program is starting late, that's between you and your God. But I just want to be on time. This has been a year. 25 has been a year. There have been so many things that I've had to do in silence, keep close to my chest, and only share with a few as a way to communicate to myself and to God that I trust and believe, and that I can be a steward of what I have and do the things that I say that I'm going to do. And I think that is something that I'm truly going to take into the new year with me, right? Creating that as my norm in my now is something that has kept me this year. It has, not being on social media as much, just repurposing content across platforms, using what I have, right? Sometimes we think, people are paying so close attention to us, they're going to notice. And if they do, they going to tap in and mess with it or they not, right? And so use what you have, okay? And there is no time like the present. It's so important to not rush any moment in your life. I was in conversation with my therapist and I was sharing that preparation is a form of respect. And then in my next breath, we said it at the same time. It's also a form of love. How you prepare now, how you are living now is a form of self-love, right? This now is preparing you for what is next. And I believe what is now is always more significant than what is to come, because that is what God has control over. And when we rush things, we're interfering with that timeline. That is not your responsibility. It's making me think of an activity that was also shared with me and thinking about the only thing that we have to do. Like there's an activity where you release things and you keep one of the things, and it's just like, okay, that's the one thing that you're responsible for. And I'm like, oh, I love this thing. I know I'm being very vague, but there's so much that we think that we have to be responsible for, and we don't, in short, okay? We just do not. Look, I also want to say that you are on time. You're right where you need to be. Don't rush anything. I know there are only days left in the year. I've talked about locking in. I talk about locking in all the time, but this seems to be like the moment in the season where everybody is talking about locking in. You define what that looks like for you. You are where you are because that's where you're supposed to be. You are not behind. Don't let anyone trick you into that. Don't let the enemy trick you, and don't allow somebody else to take on the attributes of the enemy and trick you. Watch it back, watch people, okay? But I have some tips. I heard this girl say, I ain't a motivational speaker, I believe in God. And I was like, I like that. I do too. So I'm gonna go over to my notes. Okay. I'll share some things with you. So here are 5 ways to help you think about the ingredient of time and how you can incorporate it into your daily life in practical ways, right? The first thing is to honor the season you're in, right? I just told you you're not behind. I remember a pastor saying in college, Pastor Marcus Hungry Church, Greensboro, North Carolina, he said, you can't take winter walks with summer friends. I am being very evaluative and honest with myself about the season that I'm in and honoring the season that I'm in, creating boundaries and distance, not over explaining myself, not spending too much time in places that don't deserve it or energy, right? Again, Ecclesiastes 3:1. So everything there is a season. Secondly, trust God's timing over your urgency. I have a million to-do lists. Not a million. I'm exaggerating. You know that. But I do have a number of lists. And I check things off. I make little lists on notes and on my phone and all these things. But there is appointed times for different things. When you create a sense of urgency for everything, everything becomes a priority. And that is just not possible. And I remember being told nothing is urgent. And I was like, oh. I was like, I like that. Doesn't mean that you have to have a slow approach to everything, but it does put things into perspective. Right? Back to my fruit picking days. Now, I hope that by the time I get my garden, I don't have to wrestle with any kids in my neighborhood because they don't want to leave my trees alone. But I understand if it comes back, right? But don't harvest too early is my next point. Fruit picked too soon looks good, but it lacks nourishment, right? And Galatians 6:9 reminds us that harvest comes from the proper time, not when we are tired of waiting. So when you think about literal fruit and the fruitfulness in your life spiritually, think about that as well. Do not harvest too soon. Now, this point right here, I'm talking to myself, but I'm talking to you too. Let waiting build trust, not anxiety. We live in a world where there's so much going on. Okay. The last 5 years, I can't believe it is the end of 2025 because it's going to be like, whoa, this was 6 years ago. Oh my God, right? And so trust, not anxiety. We live in a world that is very overstimulating, is the point that I want to make. And when you say you trust and believe, do trust, and find ways to honor your nervous system. Regulate who you talk to, how often you speak to them, how often you're reading the news, how much time you're giving, what you say yes to, what invitations you need to decline, what your budget is looking like. Hello, because sometimes we be creating chaos. Is this thing on? No mic? Okay, great. All right. And my last point is measure fruitfulness by faithfulness. I've been talking about being a tree. I always tell people I am a garden, but valuing consistency over quick results is a core value. If you are showing up and staying planning and choosing obedience, you create fruitfulness, right? And I think that's a good way to measure relationships, and not just romantic and or anything like that, but your friendships, your relationships at work. What is producing fruit? Who produces fruit personally, professionally, emotionally, spiritually, all the things? Who is producing fruit? Some people are starved spiritually, especially because they are bound to fruitless people, fruitless environments. May not even be good fruit or good soil themselves, all right? You got to do your work. You got to till when it's time. You have to plant. You have to water. All the things. I say that I am a garden because not only am I like obsessed with like the beauty and the power, the symbolism, and just like the godliness of flowers and gardens, but I'm like, I want to be that. I want to be good ground. I aspire. I am human. I also know that if he dresses the lilies in beauty and splendor, how much more will he clothe you? Right? Like, yes, okay. Yes, yes, and yes. That is all that I have for you this time around. I hope that this has been fruitful for you, all puns intended. I'm so grateful for this iteration of the show. Life will be the rebrand from the Get My Life tour, and each and every one of you who has decided to spend your time this way and allow me to be a part of your community, right? This is not about me just showing up here. And I know people are probably like, okay, will there be guests? What's going on? Yes. It has been a very transitional year, and I respect people's time as well. And so as I have been in transition and making a number of things happen behind the background, I have decided to position myself as the talking head for this season. And so I'm so grateful for this season as well, because it took a little courage to get back here and have these conversations and get on camera and all the things. Because, yes, Lydia be like, too. And so here I am. I'm looking forward to this new now and the new year. So many things are transpiring. I feel it. I hope you feel it and believe it for yourself. I'm believing it for myself. I'm believing bigger for all of you. Thank you for your support. Thank you for tuning in. A couple of quick things before I officially log out. If you engage with me on social media, please don't just follow. Talk to me. I talk back. Thank you to each of you who have left comments and participated on the polls on Spotify. That is so engaging and so exciting for me. I'm like, oh my gosh, real people. I got my Wrapped for Spotify. I shared it on Life Will Be Pod on Instagram. And I was like, wow, there are people who are still listening from all over the world, who have similar interests and are walking different paths, all different ages, background, color, creed, ethnicity. And I'm just so grateful. So yes, life will be back in full effect 2026 with guests, all the things. I have a number of things that I'm looking forward to sharing with you all. Until then, happy new now. Happy new now. New year. All of the things, y'all. It has been real. Peace.